A lot of people focus on, oh, you need to like build relationships with everyone. And yeah, obviously in an ideal world, I would love to build relationships with everyone. It would make my life so much easier. But just the reality of the situation is I can't really do that. So I just try and put myself out there as much as possible and find people otherwise and hope they respond.
Welcome back to the SDR Game, the show where I interview top performers. I share tips and strategy that works best today about prospecting, productivity, and sales career. Welcome to episode 4 of our social selling mini season on the SDR Game podcast. Today, Julia Carter is joining us, a top performer here at Marpipe. She's smashing quotas. As an SDR, she hit 400% in August 2022, 167% in September, and 115% in October. And she did it all without making a single cold call. On top of that, she created sequences for the company with 30 to 45% open rate with over 3,000 prospects running through at a time. Since she moved to a full cycle A role, and she continued to smash quotas because in Q1 she closed 13 deals, and on those 13 deals she sold 8 of them, so that's nearly 62%.
I think that's the hardest part with social selling is people can obviously smell like BS from a mile away, and if you're just like posting about stuff and just praising stuff that everyone kind of knows you don't really know much about, you know, it doesn't come off as authentic, and then people don't really like not believe it, but it's like, oh, like why are you saying that?
In today's episode, we're going to dive into the world of social selling using visuals and leveraging automated cold emails, all thanks to Julia's tested approaches. So Julia, when I was preparing this episode, I've heard that social selling means prospecting. Did you try to focus on building relationships, or you're always focused on prospecting?
For social selling, at least in my opinion, like building relationships with people and posting about, you know, your product, like it really it works best when you're kind of selling into salespeople or someone who's very like kind of has a similar interest or similar role to you. I think for me, like I work with digital marketers, so me, you know, talking to them about like, you know, like Facebook ads is just not very authentic because I've never run a Facebook ad campaign before. So even though that's what my software does, I just have had little luck with that. But I do use LinkedIn a lot to prospect and find leads. So I'm not necessarily interacting with them in like the traditional way that a lot of people are. I just find that my prospects aren't really like posting a lot there. But I do use like LinkedIn Messenger and also like use LinkedIn Sales Navigator to find people.
And just to follow up on what you're saying here, so right now that's the 6th episode I'm doing on social selling on the podcast. And like you, before I thought that everyone was more focused on building relationships. So maybe 1% on the interviews was doing that, but all of them are doing the same as you. They are just prospecting because for the same reason you just mentioned, because of the prospects, they're not active. Here, like you said, you don't know what you never done the job of your prospects. So I think as an SDR salesperson, it's hard to share content or to do that in a relevant way for them.
For sure. Yeah, it is hard. Like, I think a lot of people focus on, oh, you need to like build relationships with everyone. And yeah, obviously in an ideal world, I would love to build relationships with everyone. It would make my life so much easier. But just the reality of the situation is I can't really do that. So I just try and put myself out there as much as possible and, you know, find people otherwise and hope they respond.
And something else you mentioned also when we are preparing, we did like a session together just to prep the episode. You mentioned that you focus on quality. So what quality means for you?
Yeah, so I think honestly, one of the biggest challenges are people are like always focused on their cadence. Like, oh my God, like what's in my email? Like, how can I make my email so the best email ever? But like, what you really need to start with is like what you put in is what you get out. So if you have like this super broad list of prospects and like you don't really know if they're going to be a good fit, like they might be, but you're not really sure because they kind of feel like they might be, like you need to have really like every prospect in your cadence. If you booked a meeting with them, you should be like, oh my God, they're perfect. Because otherwise, like you're just going to start booking bad meetings. Like people aren't going to understand what your message is saying. And it just gets to be like just not an effective strategy. So I think for me, quality, like you need to really hone in on like, okay, like who will resonate with my message and only upload those best people. So like for me, although I go after marketers, I only target like paid social marketers at e-commerce and retailer brands who are running this very like specific ad format on Facebook that like not every brand is running. And I only do those people because I know that that ad format works well with my company and that we can actually help them. And it also allows you to like get really tailored in your messaging when you start to like really narrow in on prospects.
How did you learn about being so focused on those personas? Because I think sometimes the first training session I'm doing with SDR generally, it's talking about the ICP and the buyer personas and making sure they are focusing on the right people. So how did you learn about that? And can you share your process with the audience to show what worked for you?
Yeah, oh my God, so much trial and error. Like I literally in my first gig, I remember at one of my prospects was like some huge like retailer and I prospected like 60 people from it and my boss was like, "Julia, that's like way too many people." I was like, "Oh, but like they all could like know about marketing, you know, like they're all good." And he's like, "Oh my God, this is such a bad idea." So it was through a lot of trial and error and just figuring out to like the nuances of everything. Like even though I target people who work with social media ads, people who work in social media are not good fits. So it's very like counterintuitive, but I just had to like literally throw paint at the wall or like whatever it is, the phrase, to figure out what would stick. And then once I figured out like, okay, like these people are actually the ones who like I want to talk with. I just really decided to go there. Because some people, everyone has different strategies. Some people like to go for like the C-suite people. Some people like to go for the end user. Like there's all sorts of different strategies, but I would just kind of bucket things out into like maybe a few groups or just like one group and really tailor your messaging for like that group of people. But yeah, it took a lot of tries to figure it out.
And just to follow up on that also, because you said that you've done a lot of research on this, something else you mentioned also, it's that you use a lot LinkedIn Boolean searches. So how do you, now that you know which persona you go after, so how do you use Boolean searches on LinkedIn?
Yes, I love Boolean searches. So my process is so first I'll make sure the company is a good fit for me. So I have some sort of like trigger or event that like verifies like, okay, this is a good fit. It could be a lot of things for a lot of different people. Maybe it's SDR teams under 10 people, or it's, you know, companies using DocuSign, or, you know, there's some sort of trigger event that makes them a good fit. So I've verified that they're a good fit because they are doing the ad type that I want. And then for titles, I will use Booleans. And if you don't know what a Boolean is, it's like a group of keywords that are all smushed in together. So it can search multiple things at once. So you could search like marketing and sales titles or things like that. But for titles, I like to bracket it out into three groups, like really narrow, kind of like the best, sort of like a middle range, medium, and then a broader title group. Because if I'm going after like Walmart, like they're gonna have so many marketing people, so I'll use like a really narrow title group for them, like my two or three best titles. But for a company like, you know, that's smaller, like maybe, I don't know, some small retailer, I'll use the broad one because the person who like runs their
Okay.
marketing probably will like be a good fit. So I'll use them that way, but I don't use them for companies. I know a lot of people use company Booleans so they can, you know, keep track of like all their accounts. But I find that because the Boolean is like a keyword, that if you're, you know, maybe you're going after a company called like, I don't know, like race or like, I don't know, something like that, like you'll just get all these things. It'll be like horseracing.com or, you know, race to finish kids gym or like some stupid stuff like that. So I prefer to go company by company and then do the titles as the Boolean.
And I like the way you approach that because, like you said, the bigger the companies and the more specific you need to be. Because, like you said, small companies might they won't have the title you're looking for. Yes, that's part of the job, but it's not. You won't see that on the title. And like if you go after Walmart, yes, you will have those specific titles, and you have one person in charge of that actually, or one team maybe at the company in charge of that.
Exactly.
So yeah, and same for me. I use them a lot because on LinkedIn, I don't think there is only one way to search for prospect inside an account because uh, at my first role at Chili Piper, I was going after sales and marketing people. So you can just put the function sales marketing and then you see all the titles. But it's not perfect because sometimes it missed like a few titles. But then also, if you use the Boolean search, sometimes I miss some titles. So generally, I was doing a mix of both. And now, in my new role, I'm going after data leaders, and you don't have like a team of data on SalesNav, so you need to look for the titles, and yeah, that works pretty well for me by doing that actually.
I know, yeah. And it's like hard too because you do have to like perfect it. Like one of the titles that's good for me is like, acquisition marketing, but a lot of like talent acquisition people pop up. So you have to like
Oh yeah,
separate it out a little bit if you just search acquisition. But over time, you kind of perfect it and you learn like these little trends to make it easier.
Yes. Because yeah, I know we didn't talk specifically how to create it, but also on the Boolean search, you can include things, but also you can exclude some keywords that you don't want. So like interns or like you mentioned, talent acquisition, for example, for you. So now you have your account, you selected your best prospects at those accounts. So what's your process to prospect someone on LinkedIn?
Yes. So on LinkedIn, what I will do is I will connect with them. At some point in my sequence, I usually have it like as my second step in the sequence or whatever. So I'll connect with them. And then maybe once a week, twice a week, once every other week, depending on when I have time, I'll go through my connections and see like who accepted my connection that week. And then I'll just kind of pull up everyone's tab and I'll like message them all. And I'll usually do like a total of maybe 3 messages, maybe 4 messages over like a period of time. There's no like secret sauce to the madness, but I try not to be that person who just like connects with someone and like sends them a message, even though I'm like kind of cold pitching them or whatever. Like, I try to let it marinate for like a day or two before. Um, but yeah, so and then my message I'll call out like just really straight to the point. Like I don't like these people who try and like fluff me up like oh like how do you feel about this, like they're trying to start a conversation with me. I'm like, just tell me you've title sales in your title, like I already know what's going on here, just like give it to me. So I'll just be like, hey, saw these ads, I'll screenshot the ads, like you want to make them look better basically. I'm like, here's some examples, like let me know if that looks good. So
By the
it's
way,
pretty like straightforward.
do you have an
And then
example that you can share?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll literally just that's exactly the message. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally just, hey, saw these ads. Do you want to make them look more on brand? And I'll send them the ads, and I'm like, sound cool? Like, let me know if it's interesting. That's literally the message. But I'll keep like follow up with more examples. Like, oh, only asking because I like just saw your ads and I figured they could look cool with like this, and then I'll show them some more photo examples. So yeah, it's nice because it's not like super heavy lift on my end, but it like gets the point across very straightly.
Do you find those ads manually? You go on Facebook on the
Yeah.
library ads of the company?
Yeah. So I can find those, but I know for a lot of people, like I have a very visual product, so I kind of have that as like ammo in my pocket. But I think for people who don't have like visuals, just calling out like any specific context that like you have about that person that they would like resonate with, because even if I didn't send them the ads, these people would know exactly what I'm talking about. So kind of figuring out that thing that's like, oh, if I send, the SDR manager a thing like, hey, like I saw you guys are hiring for an SDR, or some sort of trigger event that the person receiving it would be like, oh shit, like I know what you're talking about.
It's great when you have a product that you can show in your outreach, because here it's not like you are just sending something about your product, it's you are sending the ads, and it shows that you've done your research. It's not, even though it's like you said, it's not super personalized, but it's personalized to the account, and you show that you've done your research. When I was at Chili Peppers, we were selling a product that you can how do you say, integrate into the demo form of the company. So if the company were running Facebook ads with like book a demo with us, we were using this, we were taking screenshot of it. Or same, we were using the form on their website. If they have a demo form, taking the screenshots of the demo form and talking about it, because it's not super personalized on the person, but it's relevant to the company.
Totally. And I think that that's like it, like my opinion on personalization is if it doesn't add to your value prop of like what you're proposing, like just don't do it. Unless there's some legit connection, like there's some you're from the same hometown or something like really niche. But otherwise, just like honestly, if it doesn't add to your case, just like get rid of it. So yeah, any sort of screenshot of like the site or something, I just find that it makes it like more personal without having to like do anything.
No, and you're right on that. So, and I think, yeah, salespeople in general, they're more receiving well personalization, and they are going to send you, hey, kudos on your outreach, and they're going
Oh
to
my
reply.
God, yeah. It's like, shut up.
But
Like, I don't care. Or like people endorsing me for stuff. They're like, I saw you took French in college, and they'll like endorse me for it. I'm like, I don't know who you are. My French is terrible. That's why we're not speaking it together, Elric.
what you want to do that you record the interview in French?
Oh no. Oh
No?
my God. That would be so bad. You would get no listens.
No, but I think, yeah, it's something I've learned, right? Same with data leaders. It's try to personalize my outreach at the beginning. I stopped doing it. And it's not because it's good or bad, but for the same reason that you mentioned, I'm not getting the results that I'm expected. The only time I'm personalizing to the person or something, it's when we have a close lost opportunity with them to mention what they were talking about 6 months ago, talking about the pain they were trying to solve. That's the only way now where I'm personalizing to the person, because it was really specific. So that's
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. It's like very relevant to their business, how you can actually help them. It's not trying to like, fluff them up with, gassing them up with random facts. It's like, hey, you guys are doing this, like it could be better.
So you said you send like 3 to 4 messages to your prospects on LinkedIn. So you said message 1, that's a visual, generally the screenshot of the ad. So, and then what do you do?
Yeah. So I'll usually so my second message, I'll do kind of a like, hey, like only asking because I saw your ads. I like didn't see their ads, but whatever. I just said that I saw them. I'm like, yeah, only asking because I just saw one and I think it could be better. Like, maybe looking something like this. And I'll just send more visual examples for the second message. And then for the third message, I'm just like, hey, like, does this seem interesting? Pretty straightforward and to the point. It's nothing like super extravagant, but I think with LinkedIn, people's inboxes get so swamped that you have to follow up like multiple times. Like I've clicked on messages from people, and even if they sound cool or interesting, like I just forget to respond. So I think just repeatedly following up like makes a huge difference. Like I'll rarely get a response after the first one, but I'll definitely get responses if when I do, it's like later down the line.
I know. So you mentioned that you are running cold emails. So you have sequences for cold emails, but they are automated. So at what point do you add the prospect into this cadence? Is it at the same time that you are contacting them on LinkedIn, or what's your strategy with this?
Yeah, so I just have an email cadence that's like over the course of a month, and it's like 6 emails. And then there's like a LinkedIn step in there, but the only step I put in there is just the LinkedIn connection, because I just find it's easier for myself to organize it separately from like the email cadence. Like having all the reminders and stuff is like so annoying, and then you get plagued with like all these tasks and they just like build up. So instead, I'll just have all my emails run kind of automatically, and I'll do the LinkedIn stuff like separately on the side.
Okay. They are automated. So I imagine you have like different cadences, or maybe by persona or by industry, or what's your approach with, do you have different cadences for cold emails, or is this the same one for all your accounts? Or?
Everyone gets the same one.
Okay.
But in fairness, because everyone's like, oh my God, like it just works well for our business and what we're solving, because I'm only targeting like performance marketers at e-commerce retail brands who run white background DPA on Facebook. So it's like this very kind of like tight group of people. Um, and it's not like a lot of prospects per account. It's pretty small,
Yeah.
usually, even for the bigger companies. So yeah, I'll just give everyone the same one, but it's very like visually based and like very straight to the point with all my emails, because again, like we do have a very visual product, but even if you don't have a visual product, like adding some sort of gif of your product or something, I just find like people resonate with that really well.
Yeah, I understand why you have only one sequence, because if you are really specific about the title and the industry, I think you can go just have one sequence.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like if I had like, if our product was more of like an all-in-one solution, you know what I mean? Like I would definitely segment it out based off of like certain triggers. And I would segment it more so by trigger than persona, honestly, because I find, or maybe persona and trigger, but like I find that when you segment it off by trigger, you can get really specific with your messaging and people think you really like know what you're talking about, where it's like, hey, like I saw these white background ads. So when I send that, it's like, whoa, like I know exactly why they're reaching out to me. And segmenting off by trigger is just like really helpful versus like, oh, like as the CMO, you probably care about this, or as the VP of marketing, you care about this. Things like that, like just they don't resonate as hard. Like I think trigger plus a little something is good to do.
Do you also add the screenshot of the ads on the sequences? They are
No, my
no?
God, it would
Okay.
take so long. So I just keep it like just honing in on like before and after examples of like other people, or like other examples of creative people are running. And I just like keep hounding them with examples. And then usually they'll be like, oh, this looks cool. Like, let's meet and talk about like how we could do it for our ads or whatever. But yeah, it would just take so long to do that. And I don't have time. Although I do in like one-off follow-ups, like if someone engages with me a lot, I'll send them like their ads separately, but not in the big sequence because like it's too much time. I don't have that time.
And also, that's something that I want to learn more about this, because you said that when we were preparing the episode, you mentioned that actually that you focus only on the people who are replying, and then you start personalizing more your outreach. So let's say you have like a reply from someone. What do you mean by personalizing for this specific person? Is it sending the screenshot or something else?
Yeah, so I think again, we're just going to say it again. If the personalizing doesn't help your case, don't put it in there. So I don't do any sort of like crazy something, but if someone is engaging a lot, like they're looking at my emails a lot, they're kind of forwarding them around, I will send them a one-off email like, "Hey, like saw these ads, screenshot. Have you ever tried making them better with X, Y, and Z?" And then I'll send some relevant examples that I think that they would like. And that I think tends to do pretty well. Or if I have some sort of intel, like I'm working with like their sister company, or I'm working with their competitor, or they're doing something similar, I'll mention that in there. There's no like it has to be a certain way, but I find that in a one-off, if there's kind of like a great template or a great framework that you can kind of work with it, so it's just a quick and easy process, and the process like the prospect knows what you're talking about, it feels relevant to them, that's definitely the way to do it.
Could you share like an example of when you're prospecting recently on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so first I verify trigger of the company. So I like have all these companies that I find or are on a list, whatever, and then I'll verify like, okay, they're a good fit. Then I'll find the people, put them in the cadence, and then I'll let the cadence run on autopilot, which I know is like totally frowned upon. I'm definitely like landing in spam in some cases, but also like for context, like we're like a 2-person team about to be 1-person team. We're really small. I'm a full cycle AE. We don't get many inbounds. I'm all outbound. So like any time efficiency I can gain, like I'm gaining it. So I let it go on autopilot. And then recently I had a brand who just kept forwarding the email around. Like I kept seeing they were opening it. So I just kept sort of one-offing them, just like more and more examples and more things that I thought would be relevant to them. And then they they booked. So yeah, just keep hounding them, like keep providing value. I know a lot of people love the like bump email where they're like thoughts. And it's like, I don't have any thoughts because there was nothing to have a thought about. What was I supposed to think about? So I think any sort of like context that you can provide is just in just more and more relevancy because the prospect honestly doesn't know who you are, nor do they care about who you are. So you kind of have to have that mindset of like proving to them like, hey, like I know what you're doing, like I can actually make a difference for you.
Yeah, and the thought email actually, if your first message is not good, generally you don't get great replies from sending thoughts.
Yeah, it's like, what is my thought on? There was nothing to think about.
When I was testing some messaging and sending the thought email a long time ago, generally you get like my thoughts, unsubscribe. Generally you get
Yeah,
that.
literally. Well, it's like you're literally setting yourself up for people. Like, also when people are like, would you be opposed? I'm always like, yeah, like I am opposed. You know, you're just kind of asking for it. So try not to like ask for it, you know. It's like just keep it cash, keep it relevant, keep it to the point, and people will like respond and thank you for it, honestly. They're like, great, I totally get what you're talking about. Cool. Sounds good.
You mentioned a few times adding value. How do you add value to your prospects?
Yeah, I think just any sort of, I know everyone's always talking about relevancy. It's like, well, what does relevancy mean? Like, I think you need to think about all your best, customers, like how you really help them. Like, and not just like, oh, we save them time, we save them money, we, automate things. Like, you really have to think like, okay, like, is this something they can do today? Like, how do we actually make like a positive impact on their day to day? And once you get really granular on that, you can figure out, oh, like these are reasons why my product would like fit well with what they're doing. And it's different for everyone, you know what I mean? So I can't give like a specific answer. But when I was finding it, I was like, okay, like this ad type is like really perfect. It's like brands of these size, like like seem to be our best customers. Brands running this many ads, they seem to be our best customers, and just really narrowing it down.
Nice. So for me, adding value, generally I do two things. I use content from an influencer, for example, in the space that I know a lot of my prospects are following. And I use that as a follow-up, saying, obviously, if I have any feedback on my previous email. Also, by the way, here's an article or interview with this person, and they're talking about this, and I thought you might be interested. There is that, and also we are using the content we are producing because we have like a team of 4 people on the marketing team, and they produce a lot of content, and we are selling the best piece of content they are producing because we are using, I don't know, the stats of the best article. We are sending to say, we know that a lot of people are reading this one, so we are going to send it to more people. We were talking about a success story. Now let's talk about challenges. Can you share a challenge that you faced recently using social selling, and what did you do to overcome it?
Every day is a challenge in sales, right? Like literally there's never a good, I mean, good days happen, but like it's
In
not that
sales?
many of them. It's all just hard. It's all bad. You're just getting rejected all day. But you know what? There are wins, and so that's good. But I think like honestly, in terms of like social selling, not even a challenge. I think this is something that I used to kind of do, but something I see a lot are people who just post all about their company and, oh my God, we're doing this, we're partnering like with this in a way that's very like, it's almost as if like your company, people should be flocking to you like, oh my God, like Julia's company is doing this. Like no prospects are going to look at your post. They don't know who you are. They don't care about what you do. So I think that's just like a big mistake people make with social selling is it's like, oh my God, like we just partnered with, this retailer and we're doing so well. And, no one gives a shit. So I think like tastefully integrating in how your product like maybe helped your day to day. That's like, I love that. But yeah, honestly, because I don't post about my product that much, like I don't really get much hate.
Yeah.
People just won't reply to me if they don't want to reply, and that's pretty much it. So
Or generally when you
It's just a
post,
challenge every day, just getting responses, trying my best.
something about your company, an update or something like that, you don't like. I saw that you get like from 60 to 600 likes, for example, of engagement on your posts. Generally, if you do that, you get like a lot less because one, like
Totally.
I think it's as salespeople, it's hard to be genuine when you are sharing this type of content.
Yes, totally. I think that that's the hardest part with social selling is people can obviously smell like BS from a mile away. And if you're just like posting about stuff and just praising stuff that everyone kind of knows you don't really know much about, it doesn't come off as authentic, and then people don't really like not believe it, but it's like, oh, like why are you saying that? And it's like, oh, I have so many, when people too like tag specific prospects in posts, they're like, I would love to get a meeting with you. And it's like, what's in it for that person? Like there's literally nothing in it for that person. And that's the shift I think a lot of people don't make, is it's all about me, my company, blah, blah, blah. Like these people don't care about us. So you have to make it like all about them. And I find that a lot of ways people like do social selling, it's very much about me and what I'm doing, but it really should be all about like what they are doing.
Now we are almost at the end of the episode. So what tools do you use for social selling?
So LinkedIn Sales Navigator obviously is the best place ever to find people. I don't really in-mail because like literally like maybe once a year I'll get like an in-mail meeting. Like in-mail is like stupid. it's too like, I don't know. I just prefer to go with people who've connected with me. If there's someone you're really trying to hit, like do in-mail, but otherwise I'm like, no. And then in terms of like getting, just Sales Navigator for social selling. And then to get information, we're just using Lead IQ, which is like pretty good. It's just gets information. But I like it because it will take my leads from LinkedIn and then just plop it in my cadence in SalesLoft, which I like better than these tools that build out lists like a ZoomInfo or something like that, because the way that I'm targeting people is very specific and small. And I find that with like these bulk lists, there's just like too much noise and not enough qualified people. So I just find that like really cherry picking people has been really good.
What's your favorite resource to grow as a rep?
Having a great boss or manager or mentor. That's the best resource you can have of all the things. Like someone you deal with every day, but you know what, not everyone has that. So if you don't have that, I think honestly just finding other salespeople who are kind of like-minded, maybe in similar industries, to kind of like buddy up with, because even though there's like so much free content out there, but I think finding someone who's similar, who has maybe similar prospects or, similar something, and just like collaborating together, like what's working, what's not working, so you guys can help each other get better, is definitely the best way to grow, because it's almost like information overload at all times, and you really have to find your own style. So finding people who are similar to you and who have like, just helping each other get better is like definitely the best resource.
And finally, for SDRs who are listening to this episode right now and wants to improve their social selling skills, what advice would you give them?
Yes, be genuine. I think that that's like the hardest thing, that even just with all sales, like be genuine, be like curious, and like people can smell if you're being fake on, posting about stuff that you don't know about, or, so, keep it genuine and to the point, and, the results will come with that.
Well, Julia, thank you so much for being on the show today. But before we end the episode, do you want to add anything else to the audience?
No, this was so much fun. I had such a great time. You can find me on LinkedIn if you like roasts. I do a lot of them. I roast a lot of people. So yeah, if you want to see me humble the sales influencers, you found your gal. So
All right, thanks, Julia.
Thanks.
And thanks everyone for listening to this episode. I see you on the next one.